Now, from CBS News Miami, this is Facing South Florida with Jim DeFede.
Welcome to Facing South Florida. I'm Jim DeFede, and with the legislature wrapping up its 60-day session on Friday, all eyes now turn to Governor Ron DeSantis as we wait for his formal announcement that he's running for president. This legislative session, and for that matter the last three legislative sessions, seem designed to give DeSantis a wide array of conservative, culture war issues that he can run on. This week, I spoke to the two Democratic leaders in the legislature, State Senator Lauren Book and State Representative Fentrice Driskell. I started with Book, asking her how she thought the session went this year.
This was a rough session. This is going to be a rough session for Floridians to really unpack what happened once we leave here. The last 60 days have been a whirlwind of the GOP trying to get Ron DeSantis everything he wanted. And I think that they're going to find that they have worked very hard to change the face of Florida, and not in a good way, not in a way that I believe or that my caucus believes represents Floridians. They've done things that I believe once people realize the true aftermath of it are going to be really angry, and there will be a reckoning, because I think it was too much, and it's been a really rough session.
All right, so let's get some examples. Give me some specifics of what you think is out of line with the rest of the state.
Well, we know that Floridians don't support an abortion ban that has passed. We know that this is a ban it's a 6-week ban. There is an exemption for rape and incest up to 15 weeks. And that will not come into effect until the Florida Supreme Court upholds the 15-week ban that currently exists. But we know 75% of Floridians don't support an abortion ban of that extreme nature. And we know in the next coming days, you're going to find a ballot initiative that's going to be launched by Planned Parenthood and others to put that on the ballot in 24. You have open carry, which is permitless carry, we'll call it, where people will be able to carry guns concealed, but without a permit, without classes. We've already seen incidences back home in South Florida where people have accidentally shot themselves, and I think that that's going to continue to happen. We've done nothing for property insurance, nothing to help Floridians and the day-to-day needs that they have. They've worked to expand Don't Say Gay 2.0 and other measures like the bathroom private spaces bill to ensure that people go to the bathroom of their birth, not of their identity. Again, these aren't issues that are on the forefront of the minds of Floridians. They're having a hard time paying for property insurance, putting a mortgage payment together, getting kids to school on time, paying for prescriptions and dinner. They're not worried about some of these things, but that is what the majority of this session was about. And it is a really, really sad time.
Why then did they pass all these things? Why tackle these issues, in terms of the culture war issues, rather than deal with the substantive issues that need to be addressed in the state? Why do you believe your colleagues went down this route instead?
Well, the governor is running for president and said he wanted certain things to be done to speak to a certain base for his presidential primary and hopes and aspirations. And so that is what they have tripped over themselves really to do. And it is going to take a very long time to untangle the mess that they have created, whether it was, again, permitless carry, bathroom of your birth, Don't Say Gay 2.0, the extreme abortion ban, or his feud with Disney, all in a way to further the governor's political aspirations, and Floridians are going to suffer the consequences of that.
Let's break down. Let's go to the permitless carry bill, because the aspect of it that I always find intriguing is the Republicans who I've spoken to who support it say, well, the training and background check and all those sorts of things, it wasn't very good to begin with, so why go forward with it? Isn't it the purpose then? Wouldn't the idea then be to, if you don't like the level of training people are receiving because you think it's shoddy, create better standards for training?
Yeah, so I find this a little funny, quite funny actually, because they don't have any problems putting more government or switching things around to suit their narrative, right? And so, we are the freest state of Florida, and we love being who and what we are, the free state of Florida. Go make a Florida freedom training for carrying a weapon. You don't like the way that it's done, make it better, make it different, make it more dynamic, make them come in. It's ridiculous. It's all part of the narrative to suit what they need to do. Again, we've also heard that we're going to come back possibly for a special session on open carry, which is terrifying. It's horrible. This is wrong. I mean, at the same time that the governor was signing in his office a permitless carry bill, they were passing off of the floor a complete abortion ban, one where you need to show documentation if you're a survivor of rape and incest to get an exemption, a rape exemption for an abortion, but you have to show no documentation to buy a deadly weapon. This is the dichotomy of where we are, and it is truly a scary time in Florida.
Well, let's go to abortion for a second. You said it's an outright ban. It's not. Again, if the state Supreme Court upholds the 15-week abortion ban, which you did last year, then it can go to 6 weeks. So 6 weeks is not a complete ban, though, is it?
It is a complete ban. And you and I have talked a lot about menstrual cycles and the way they work. And oftentimes women don't even know that they're pregnant by 6 weeks, unless you're very, very regular and you're keeping track of what that is. And by the way, even right now, while the 15-week ban is still in place, there's a 25 to 30-day wait to get into a Planned Parenthood. Oftentimes you can't get an appointment with your OB or your gynecologist. And so you've created situations where women are not going to have access to abortion or reproductive health care. There's three real ways that women are going to have access if they need or want to end a pregnancy, terminate a pregnancy. One, they'll have the resources to leave our state, become a medical refugee to get the care that they need, and they can afford it, right? They can go to North Carolina. Two, they may have to take measures into their own hands, which we really don't want people to do once they're past that 6-week period. Or three, they're going to have to utilize the exemption for rape and incest. And those are really the only options. When you think about 6 weeks, really and truly, Jim, you don't know that you're pregnant. Women don't often know that they're pregnant by 6 weeks. Sometimes you're a few days late, a week late, you wait. And then you're going to be in a situation where you are past the time, because by the time you realize it, you have very little time to get that appointment, to make those decisions. It's a real dangerous situation for women in the state of Florida, and women will die. We've talked a lot about the very real need, because abortion is healthcare, for women to utilize abortion in situations with a much wanted pregnancy past 15 weeks, where we've seen women have to go home to develop sepsis before they're able to get the reproductive health care that they need. And that is going to happen more and more and more. And women are going to be in very, very dire situations when this bill does continue on, because it already has, and we know it's only going to get worse.
You said a second ago women will die because of this action. You honestly believe that?
I know it's true. I know that this is true. I know that women will die. Well, abortion is not used as a form of birth control, like some people want us to believe. These were very, very wanted pregnancies. They had complications pre-prom, which is where the amniotic sac did, break, and their pregnancy was no longer viable. They were sent home from hospitals in South Florida to develop sepsis before they were able to get the health care that they need. You die from sepsis. You die from sepsis. If you're in a situation where you can't avail yourself, you can't become a medical refugee, you don't have the money or the resources to leave our state, you are going to take measures into your own hands. We saw it, we know it exists. And let's also be clear about one thing. Abortion has always existed. It always will exist. It's whether or not it's safe and healthy. And the Republicans have created a world where it will no longer be accessible or safe.
I'm curious about what it's like on the Senate floor these days, as it seems to me that you also have a race within a race in terms of the competition between Donald Trump and between Ron DeSantis. You know, Joe Gruters, State Senator Joe Gruters, is a Donald Trump supporter. You got Blaise Ngaya and some others are Ron DeSantis supporters. Is there a lot of tension on the floor in terms of who's going to vote for or who's going to come out and endorse who? And do you see that jockeying starting to take place?
Yeah, it's a very strange place to be, not just for the politics that are on the floor and the policies that we're working on, but the interworkings of inter-party politics. You've seen a lot of the congressional delegations coming out already and endorsing President Trump. Those in the chamber that support Ron DeSantis. It is a very odd, strange world. You've seen, to your example, Joe Gruder's voting against pieces of policy that he may not otherwise have voted against. So it's a very interesting time. We're putting monorails and to punish Disney further and transportation bills, further going after Reedy Creek, because I don't even know what they want us to call it now. I don't know, maybe next week there's going to be a castle tax that they do a special session on. I don't know. But it's a strange time. It's a strange world. And, I think a lot of us, Floridians really want Ron DeSantis to go announce that he's running for president, get out of the way so we can come back and fix what he's done.
Do you get the sense that his grip on the legislature is slipping at all, or is it still he's got the legislature and the Republicans in the legislature firmly in his grasp?
Look, I think it's still firmly in his grasp. I think a lot is going to fall out and we're going to see where we are, and it's going to dictate sort of where we are. But I do think that they're tired. I think a lot of people are tired. I think that the agenda that the governor was pushing was extreme, very, very extreme, with a tremendous amount of horrifically bad policies that we have been fighting against. Again, whether it was Reedy Creek, which really does not matter to our constituents, to Floridians, to the extreme abortion ban, the Don't Say Gay 2.0, the bathroom bans, the you can't use whatever protest. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous because at the end of the day, I know we get calls from our constituents who can't afford, again, property insurance. And we have spent time on immigration. We have no control over federal immigration, but we're spending 12, 13, 14, 15 hours on immigration. And that is not something that we can control. I think Floridians are tired, and we need to get back to the work of getting back to our constituents to come back here hopefully soon and fix some of the things that they've done. I mean, this is where we go home and we talk about what has happened here, and we're going to hear from our constituents how angry and upset they are once they realize it. Again, thanks to you and people who are engaged, they see what happens after the fact. And the things that are going to trickle down in the coming weeks and months as some of these bills become law. And it's going to be a real dose of reality, I think, for a lot of people.
When we come back, the Democratic leader in the Florida House, Fentrice Driskell.
Think about this session. If I had to put it in a theme, like wrap it in a big bow, I would say that it was the anti-freedom session, because you had the culture war bills that really dominated the headlines and sucked up all the air out of the room.
Stay with us. Welcome back. Legislators in Tallahassee wrapped up their regular session on Friday. It was a hard year for Democratic lawmakers because of the supermajorities held by Republicans in both chambers. I asked House Democratic leader Fentrice Driskell for her thoughts on how the session unfolded.
Well, when I think about this session, if I had to put it in a theme, like wrap it in a big bow, I would say that it was the anti-freedom session, because you had the culture war bills that really dominated the headlines and sucked up all the air out of the room. I'm talking about the 6-week abortion ban, which is as close to an outright ban as possible, because most women don't even know that they're pregnant at 6 weeks, or the permitless carry bill, which 77% of Floridians, including Republicans and Democrats, said that they didn't want and they thought it was a bad bill, right? So rather than focus on the affordability crisis that Floridians are facing with respect to property insurance rates, auto insurance rates, both of which are the highest in Florida, highest in the country, rather than focus on that, we focused on these culture wars, which didn't do anything to help Floridians lead a more healthy, prosperous, or safe life.
Why is the legislature engaging in these culture wars and passing these measures?
Well, I think one of the things that makes a difference is that we have a governor who I anticipate any day now will be making his announcement that he intends to seek the Republican nomination for president in 2024. And so all sense of separation of powers has been wiped away, completely washed away. I know that there were some of those bills where maybe House and Senate leadership were in lockstep with the governor, but I also know some of those bad bills they didn't want. but they had to do it because Ron DeSantis intends to seek the nomination for president. And right now, his ambition is what everything centers on. It's not actually about the people. It's about what helps him get headlines, whatever he thinks is going to help him in the polls. But I got to tell you, Jim, I don't know that this is going to play out how he hopes it will nationally. We are already starting to see some of his billionaire donors get cold feet and say they want to watch and just kind of wait and see how this thing shakes out because they think that his policies have been too extreme. So while, these extremist MAGA policies might help him in a Republican primary, they will not play well in the general for a presidential election.
When you say that many of your colleagues on the Republican side aren't even crazy about these bills, don't want to go along with it, are they doing it because they're afraid of the governor and they're afraid of retribution if they don't go along with it?
I do think that's part of it because the governor has demonstrated that he goes after people or entities that disagree with him. And so nobody really wants to be the one to raise their head because they're afraid that he will lop it off. All you have to do is look at Disney, right? Disney is one of Florida's largest employers. They are a huge economic engine for our state, right? Florida is a tourism-based economy. And so we need attractions like Disney to get people to want to come here and bring their families and have a nice, safe vacation. And what does Ron DeSantis do? The minute that Disney decided to stand up and say that they don't like the LGBTQ attacks that he was making with the Don't Say Gay bill last year, he took away Reedy Creek Special District. He took away their special district, which had been so instrumental to their growth and their ability to provide jobs in the Central Florida area. Disney then outmaneuvered Governor DeSantis, and then what does he do? He sues them, right? Or he countersues. I mean, it's just a mess. He is very vindictive. So nobody, I would imagine, on the Republican side wants to be the one to get caught up in his crosshairs. I think they also have been looking at him as a bit of a golden child, if you will, with respect to the presidential nomination, at least until recently. When some of them started endorsing Donald Trump, now that Trump is in the race. But I think they look at him as their ticket to getting closer to more power. And so they want to not ruin that relationship or go against the governor because they don't want him coming after them.
I do want to ask you about one bill that I'm hopeful may have some positive impact. I know that the Senate President, Kathleen Passidomo, made one of her priorities passing a bill on affordable housing, trying to make some improvements there to develop more affordable housing. I think I've asked you this before, but I'll ask again. Are you optimistic? Do you think that bill will help? And does more need to be done? And if so, what?
Well, listen, my caucus and I believe that every Floridian deserves the freedom to be healthy, prosperous, and safe. And it's very difficult to meet those standards if you don't have housing that you can afford. So I'm very glad that there was this bill that passed that provides over $700 million in resources for affordable housing. But you probably have heard me be critical of that bill before. And these are the reasons why. The first is that it preempts local governments from being able to do more for their home communities to assist with affordable housing. And the second is that Republicans have kicked this can down the road for so long. They're the ones who created the affordability crisis that we have in Florida right now, because we have an affordable housing trust fund that for years they have used to give corporate giveaways to big corporations who don't even need those resources. They should have been investing in affordable housing all along. So why $700+ million might sound like a lot of money, the reality is that it's a drop in the bucket compared to how we should have been funding this as a priority all along. So yes, I'm glad that it's a step in the right direction, but people are really feeling the pain. And so to me, this entire legislative session should have been focused on property insurance rates, trying to bring those down, housing affordability, and lowering healthcare costs, because that is what people are really dealing with. Those are the struggles that they face every day. Nobody wanted these culture war issues.
With regard to healthcare, always an important subject, there was an expansion of kid care, trying to bring more children within insurance, which is a good step, but still no real movement and no real desire, it seems like, on the part of your Republican colleagues to expand Medicaid, as I think 40 other states have done, including many very deep red states, to be able to bring a lot of federal dollars back into the state to cover, upwards of 1 million people, I think, who currently don't have insurance. Still no movement on that, right? Nobody even contemplates expanding Medicaid on the Republican side, correct?
Yeah, Jim, that's right. And, I really do have to give a shout out to Robin Bartleman, who's a representative in the Democratic caucus, who was able to attain that expansion of kid care. And it's going to help so many children across the state of Florida have the access to healthcare that they need. So we're very excited about that. But you're right, Florida is one of only 10 states that has not expanded Medicaid. And it's just for political reasons that they refuse to do it. PolitiFact recently checked me. I said that 1 out of every $3 that Ron DeSantis spends is from the government, the federal government, and they fact checked me and said that it was true. We get so much money from the federal government to be a part of our budget. We could actually save general revenue if we expanded Medicaid, because we're already paying into that federal system. So we might as well draw those dollars down. So the rationale that they try to give, the Republicans try to give to say, oh, we don't want this federal money in our state, that's baloney. We already have federal monies making up a third of our budget. We need to go ahead and expand Medicaid, get people the healthcare coverage that they need. And believe it or not, it would actually help us save general revenue dollars from the state tax revenues that we collect and help our budget to be more balanced. It's a smart, fiscally responsible move. Part of the reason why I think they don't do it too is because they try to keep poverty hidden in Florida. They try to pretend that it doesn't exist, but the reality is that people are dealing with an affordability crisis. They need access to healthcare, and the Republicans need to move on this issue. It's past time.
Well, it's the same thing with unemployment, the way they work the numbers there. If you're unemployed for a certain number of weeks, eventually you just drop off the rolls as if you're no longer being counted as being unemployed, when in fact you are, but you've just sort of timed out from their record keeping. Am I correct in how I'm describing that?
That's right. And those were some of the changes that former Governor Rick Scott made, I believe, to have fuzzy math with respect to unemployment numbers. And he certainly damaged our unemployment compensation system, which was brought to bear in a disastrous way during the pandemic, when there were so many Floridians who could not get access to the unemployment benefits that they had paid into the system.
I know that it's often frustrating to be a Democrat in either the Florida House or the Florida Senate when you're dealing with Republican supermajorities, and ideas that Democrats have put forth in recent years often get shoved to the side. And then suddenly they find a Republican sponsor and everyone agrees with it because it's now a Republican proposing it. I'm thinking specifically of the legalization of fentanyl test strips, which one of your colleagues last year made a very impassioned, very deliberate case for trying to make an amendment to a bill that would legalize fentanyl test strip. If they're very concerned with the fentanyl crisis, you can use these strips to be able to test something that you think is harmless, to be able to see if fentanyl has been introduced in it, which is way a lot of times this happens. People are ingesting fentanyl without intending to ingest fentanyl. So being able to test for it is important. A Democrat last year proposed it. Republicans shouted it down. This year it's passing. Talk to me a little bit about that, how they play games like that sometimes.
Yeah, strumming my pain with your fingers, Jim. I'll tell you that was former Democratic Representative Andrew Learned from the Tampa Bay area who pushed last year to get that policy added on as an amendment to the bill. And then this year I'm sitting there and I listened to the Republicans arguing it. I was like, what is this bizarro world? Like, what happened? Just last year, they were so adamant that would be a bad policy, and so Republicans do this all the time. They steal our good ideas. They try to, wrap themselves around it. At the end of the day, what matters most to me is that the people get helped. And, we can sort all of that out in messaging and try to make sure that we get the credit that we need. But what I've found is that oftentimes we will have really good ideas that they will just try to co-opt and take credit for. So that's one of them. It's happened many times, though, too many times to count.
We'll be right back. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back again next week. Until then, stay safe. Enjoy the rest of your day.